Hello and welcome back to Arise.Works. You are watching episode 4 of getting started with attributes and VOPs inside of Houdini. And in this video, we will finally talk about creating ramps, controlling our attributes with ramps. And this will be more kind of like applicable and visual lesson rather than, previously there was just more abstract entities of thinking about and going about things to do inside your Houdini scene. So let's get started. Let's create some ramps. Let's control some effects using the ramps in Houdini. So generally speaking, let's start from the very beginning. Let's create geometry and let's create a grid. And we will start with like the simplest example possible to kind of check out the things we want to talk about. So let's create just a grid. In our case, it's not even a grid, it's just a strip of faces. Now this is going to be a little bit important because remember I told you that you need to pay attention on which entities you are running your VOPs, like be it points or faces, primitives, and etc. So this time around we will run the attribute VOP on the primitives or faces, basically the polygons first. We can enable to view how many polygons we have, and we have from 0 to 9, which means we basically have 10 of them, right? And next up, I will be doing the Extrude, PXTR, Shift Enter, done. Okay, so I will make it 1 and make the individual elements so we see what's happening. And yeah, as you have already predicted, we will indeed run the attribute VOP and make the extrusion behave based on our ramp. Now, we drop a VOP, stands for attribute VOP for short, and we will run over, again, primitives, okay? So I enable that. We can see that we have again 10 primitives. And so to create a ramp is a remapping of values, usually from 0 to 1, to any other way of representation, values of 0 to 1 using the gradient remap. So if that doesn't make any sense, let me just showcase. Right, so we have to have, as per usual, we will work on color because, color represents our attribute visually. So we can not just see the effect, but we can see the color. And if you don't know, like the black stands for value of 0 and the white stands for 1. Okay, with that out of the way, how do we create a ramp? First, we have to have like the attribute mapped from 0 to 1, going from, number 0 to number 9. So the 0 will be black and 9 will be white. So we have the gradual kind of like growth of our attribute value in decimal of 0.1, like 0.1, 0.2, 0.2, and from 0 to 1. So we can do that by dividing the primitive number, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, by total number of primitives, which in our case is from 0 to 9, is 10. This is why I make it 10, so we can, kind of like it's easier to calculate in mind and cross-reference the result that we will have. So we get the primitive number and number of primitives. So the number of primitives is the total amount. So we get the division, and this is going to be the number of primitives. Actually, first we will get the primitive number and we will divide it by number of primitives. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and etc. will be divided by the total number. And if we get the division into color, whoops, nothing happens. Why is that, right? Why is this even happening? So the reason is rather simple. So there are two kind of main ways of representing numbers using, strings and numbers and whatnot. So this is one of them being floats, and the other one is being integer. So essentially, integer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, things that do not have decimal values. and the float is 1.15, 2.9, like 59.1235 or 3.14. So basically integer cannot have that small values after the comma. It doesn't semi-comma, whatever. It's kind of like just a number. So for this to actually work, as you can see, these are blue lines, and so we have to convert the blue line, basically like the integer value, into these turquoise or cyan value, which, as you can see, fval stands for float output. So basically we convert integer to float, and if we do that, this becomes float divided by integer, resulting in the float, which in our case is CD, right? Again, if we don't do this, everything will be 0, because it will be computed as an integer. And if we convert the primitive number into float, it's actually 0.0, 1.0, 2.0, you know. It becomes float divided by another integer, and the result is a float. And technically it's 3 float, but it doesn't matter. So we go into our geometry spreadsheet, and in our case I'll hold down the Alt right bracket to divide our viewport into 2, and let's see if I can just move the geometry spreadsheet here. Nope, I cannot. Okay, so let's just enable geometry spreadsheet and see what we have. We go to the primitives, and as you can see, the primitive number 0 has the value of CD attribute 0. 1 has 0.1, 2 has 0.2, etc., etc. So you can see that our attribute works as expected. It grows from 0 to 1, actually not growing to exactly 1, so we can maybe fix that by making the columns a bit more columns. So there you go. Our setup, oops, my bad. Our setup works as expected. So the more we have, the more gradual gradient becomes, kind of like more defined. And as a final thing, I will just disable the numbering of our primitives. As a final thing, let's see how basically we already know how to control it with the CD. And as you can see, it does what it says. Finally, right? We arrived at this. We get from extrusion from 0 to almost 1. And of course, again, if we change the numbers, everything works pretty much perfectly. Now, finally, we go to creating our ramp. And I'll just collapse this one for a second. We don't need this right now. We create ramp by typing a ramp parameter. And we can call it, I don't know, rewriting the color. Actually, you don't need to do this, but just for the sake of the very fact that, as you can see, that this has really... So basically, you create ramp inside of your VOP network, but to control it, you go outside of this, because if you remember, we talked about this. Changing parameters inside of VOP makes it recalculate the whole VOP, which makes it crazy inefficient. It's basically the wrong way of doing things. So we change the parameter outside of the VOP. But thankfully, just by creating the ramp inside of VOP, it automatically propagates the needed interface to control it outside of the VOP in the geo interface. Anyway, enough talking, let's do the thing. Finally, right, we can control the ramp. And if I just left click here, make the color almost black, this color will be again almost black, because I don't want like absolutely 0. It's not necessary, okay? Don't like be like, oh, should I do this? No, you shouldn't. I just usually do it to be safe. And as you can see, yep, we do have our ramp controlling our setup of extrusion. Again, this works procedurally, As you can see, I will decrease the inset because it looks not really fantastic at this point. So there you go. By the way, you can make the interpolation of the ramp like Bezier, B-spline, Catmull clock. Bezier gives you like the soft result really. So there you go. There you have it. We control our thing with the ramp. By the way, you can increase this value quite a bit because this is not really the color. It's just being red. It obviously is a color, but since it's also the attribute that we are working with, you can just, make it more than 2. Or if you don't like that solution, you can just increase the pole extrusion here. Of course, you can make more of these. You can control it like whatever you want. So basically, this is the gradient remapping of our setup. So there you go. Again, you can just delete this by pressing this, hitting delete. Next up, we will do pretty much same setup, but we will do it on points, and we will sort these points to control the initial generation of the gradient. So we create another grid. This time around, we'll have a lot of rows and columns. Again, a VOP. This time around, by the way, we will be doing it on points, and we will make the whole same procedure of moving around things, actually just colorizing it using the points. And we go inside, and we get, this time we get, again, we do the divide, and where is it? We get the point number divided by a number of points. Again, we go to divide into the CD, and again, nothing happens because we have to convert, the integer to float, and now we get our results. So now we can check that by enabling the number of points, and we can see that point number 0 divided by, how many is it? 2500, I think, will result in 0, and 2499 will result in almost 1. Again, we can check it out. We go to our spreadsheet, and indeed 0, and it gradually increases to almost 1. Okay, this works. Now, I was talking about sorting. Now, as you can see, actually I disable it a bit too fast. So as you can see, 0 is here and 2500 is here. So I don't know, maybe what if we could control actual position of the numbers of points, how the geometry is being evaluated. So we can do that by sorting, and it's called, the node call is sort. So let's see what we have. I will enable the attribute VOP and see what we can do with sort. So position sort can be by X, by Y, by vertex order, which is basically the default. We can reverse it, we can randomize, which is not fun because it's not really controllable. That's not the whole point. We can offset the numbers, as you can see. So this can be quite useful sometimes, right? I'll delete that, press 0. And along vector is kind of like you can write sort of a vector that can control it in XYZ. It's not super visual. It's like if you know that 1 is Y, this 1.7 is Z, and this one is X, and you know how generally, vectors, it's kind of like controlling by normal if you are okay with normals. So again, it depends on your personal preference. I think that most important ones are by attribute, and in our case, since we do not have attribute in before, we will actually by proximity to point, which is really interesting because this point, we can move it around, and you can see that it indeed, the closer it is to points in space, it will sort based on that. So you can move it up and down. If we had like 3D geometry, now we have, as you can see, infinitely thin grid. If we had like 3D geometry, we would move it in y-axis. It will again resort it based on that. Or indeed, we have in the z-axis, in the x-axis. As you can see, this gets really controllable, interesting. If we were to, you know what? Let's again run this on the poly extrude and no, let's not yet run it on the poly extrude because I'm getting ahead of myself. But actually, you know what? We will attribute promote from point to primitive. The number is CD, and we should now promote our attribute from points. As you can see, we computed first on points. CD 3 float color, and here we have one primitive attribute, CD color. As you can see, because we converted point to primitive. And if we now poly extrude, distance, individual elements, control, CD, you can see that we indeed, I'll make a little bit of inset just to showcase it a little bit better. We can now move this point around and it will rebuild our system, which looks actually pretty cool. If you don't think so, well, maybe sometime a bit later we will create a bit cooler setup. Anyway, this is how you create this type of effect. So there you go. This is our by the way, I almost forgot, we can control it by ramp as well. Ramp parameter, let's call it ramp 2 just to be safe. Here it will be ramp 2 as well. We go up one level. And as you might have already imagined, we can control the colors and we can control the position. So kind of like this is it. We are getting further and further in our understanding of how to control the attributes, and I hope, if not for like motion graphics setup, which can be, by the way, already, like as you can see, this way of controlling this, as you can see, the position is actually a float. This is very much infinitely smooth interpolation of the things that are happening. And if you animate the ramp, it will not be jaggy like in our previous lesson with bevels, where bevels were like you could see the stepping in their change of their attribute. But if you do it with the ramps, it will not. By the way, previously I think I wrote the point number in the wrong place. This is why it was kind of like misbehaving. But anyway, we have a better, bigger setup. And now you can see that we indeed can control our setups the way we want. You can do the waves, you can do like, you know, at this point, honestly, sky's the limit. You can do pretty much anything you want. And again, modeling some kind of like this thing right there will be really annoying. And of course, if you even animate the position of points, you can control it even more. So there you go. This was creating ramps with the attributes, controlling them with controlling the attribute with the ramp. Again, controlling actual creation of the ramp using the point sorting. This is kind of like simple ways of doing things, but they are very powerful, as you can already see. Obviously, it will work on any geometry, not just grid. We're using grid just to, you know, just to see what's what, to see how hard it is to do the thing, and it's not. And let's like merge the thing. And there we go. We have some sort of, I don't know, kind of like Coliseum, I don't know, alien Coliseum of poison setup. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so there you go. I'll play with this again. Hopefully this gives you a lot of interesting ideas how to use this thing. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you have questions or suggestions, trust me, we will go through more setups. This is not the final one, obviously. We will learn about how to move things, how to convert the vector to floats, and how to convert just per axis, and other things like scattering, rotation, orientation, all that in next lessons. So be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, like the video. If you have like ideas, comments, suggestions, or anything else just on your mind, leave in the comments below. I try to read all the comments and respond to them, as you have already possibly seen. I usually don't leave you out there hanging, and if something was like a bit difficult to grasp, I try to explain everything that you have on your mind. Anyway, that was me. That's it for this video. I think it was really useful. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and see you later. See you in the next videos. Have a nice day and goodbye.